Tens of thousands filled St. Peter's Square, not for spectacle, not for ceremony, for something else entirely. Inside the chapel, a woman stood before her brother's casket. Maria Elena Bergoglio, the last surviving sibling of Pope Francis, held a single handwritten page. Her voice trembled as she read, and when she finished, the room was silent. Then came the tears. Not from grief alone, from something deeper. Something no one outside that chapel understood. Pope Francis left no fortune, no property, no accounts. And yet, what he left behind broke his family completely. This is the story of a will that contained nothing of value and everything that mattered. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born in 1936 in a working-class Buenos Aires neighborhood called Flores. His family, Italian immigrants, lived modestly. Not poor, not comfortable. Somewhere in between, where every peso was counted and nothing was wasted. His father worked as a railway accountant. His mother kept the household with quiet discipline. Jorge, the eldest of five, learned early what responsibility meant. But his childhood had one unusual feature. He listened. When someone was sad, a neighbor, a stranger, a child on the street, Jorge didn't walk past. He stopped. He stayed. As a teenager, he played football in the streets, cheered for San Lorenzo, and chased the same dreams as any young man in Buenos Aires. He studied chemistry, worked in a laboratory, took odd jobs, bouncer at a nightclub, housekeeper for a local family. Nothing about his path pointed toward the church. Until 1958. He was 21. After a routine confession at a small parish, something shifted. He never described it in dramatic terms. No visions, no voices. Only this: he felt touched to the core. His mother opposed the decision fiercely. Jorge joined the Jesuits anyway. By 1969, he was ordained. By 1973, he was leading Argentina's Jesuits during one of the country's darkest chapters. The military regime kidnapped priests, tortured intellectuals, erased dissidents. Jorge navigated that terror with silence, patience, and a kind of stubborn endurance that would define him for decades. In 1998, he became Archbishop of Buenos Aires, and here the pattern began. He refused the episcopal palace, moved into a small apartment, cooked his own meals, took the bus to work. Local police called him the bishop everyone's seen on the subway. When he was elevated to cardinal in 2001, nothing changed. He brought one suitcase to Rome. In 2005, he was considered for the papacy, but withdrew in the final rounds. Then, in 2013, Pope Benedict XVI resigned. The conclave elected Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He chose the name Francis. No pope had ever taken that name. It belonged to Saint Francis of Assisi, the man who abandoned wealth to serve the poor. The message required no explanation. From his first week, Francis dismantled expectations. No penthouse apartment, no red leather shoes, no gilded vestments. He moved into Casa Santa Marta, a modest Vatican guest house. He drove a Fiat. He answered his own phone. Critics called it theater. But those who knew him in Buenos Aires said the truth. He'd lived this way for 40 years. Francis didn't perform simplicity. He practiced it. And then he went further. He ordered audits of Vatican finances, imposed anti-money laundering controls, demanded public transparency from institutions that had operated in shadow for centuries. In 2015, he published Laudato Si, a sweeping document on humanity's relationship with the earth, not addressed to Catholics, addressed to everyone. "The earth is our common home," he wrote. "Environmental destruction is not a scientific problem, it is a moral one." In 2020, Fratelli Tutti followed, a call for brotherhood across religious and ideological lines. Muslim leaders, Orthodox patriarchs, secular scholars, all received it as an unexpected bridge. And in 2024, Dilexit Nos, the first papal document to seriously address artificial intelligence and algorithmic governance. Francis called it a crisis of moral silence. These weren't policy memos, they were his true will. written in public, chapter by chapter, across more than a decade. Integrity is not free. In 2018, Francis defended a Chilean bishop accused of covering up abuse. When victims came forward, he admitted his error publicly, launched an independent investigation, and accepted the resignation of Chile's entire episcopate. The wound never fully healed. When he permitted blessings for same-sex couples in 2023, both sides attacked. Conservatives called it betrayal. Progressives said it wasn't enough. Francis offered no defense, only 5 words: no one should be denied love. Inside the Vatican, his financial reforms made powerful enemies. He dissolved foundations, ended immunity for senior cardinals, stopped investments tied to oligarchs. According to Il Messaggero, a faction quietly pressured him to resign, citing health concerns. He didn't. On social media, conspiracy theories spread that he was hiding assets, performing poverty, wielding secret power. None of it was substantiated. All of it was amplified. When he criticized the U.S.-Mexico border wall in 2016, calling it unchristian, he became a target for political forces that had never cared about theology. He never retracted. Francis once told a trusted priest, "No one is so opposed as the one who tries to keep things right." The remark was never made public. It surfaced only later in the priest's private journal. Maria Elena Bergoglio was the last of Jorge's 4 siblings. She lived in suburban Buenos Aires, worked as a school administrator, raised 2 sons. She never sought the spotlight, never used her brother's name. Twice a month, Francis called her, not to discuss the Vatican, but to ask if she could still take walks. When he became pope, she asked him directly, "Am I still your sister, or am I part of the Vatican now?" He answered, "As long as you keep my number, I am still Jorge." At the funeral, Maria Elena stood in the back pew. She did not face the cameras. The will she read was not a legal document. It was a handwritten page containing 3 instructions. 1. Do not accept donations, gifts, or honorary positions from any organization using his name. 2. Do not publish memoirs, letters, or personal photographs for profit. 3. Continue to live as the family always lived, without trading on reputation for privilege. 3 lines: no assets, no accounts, no inheritance. Only a challenge: live as he lived. That evening, St. Peter's Square filled again. No organizers, no program, just people, holding candles, holding photographs, holding handwritten quotes from his encyclicals. The phrase repeated most often: you lived as you believed. In Rio de Janeiro, janitors built a sidewalk altar and read from Laudato Si. In Nairobi, students gathered on campus with copies of Fratelli Tutti. In Manila, in Munich, in small parishes across 6 continents, the memorials emerged without instruction. Not because a pope had died, because a man had lived exactly as he said he would. Maria Elena gave one statement to the press: "We are not mourning a pope, we are mourning a brother, and the hardest thing is not accepting his death, it is holding on to what he believed while the world changes so fast." Her sons have never appeared publicly. They refuse interviews. They do not use the Bergoglio name for access. They were taught from childhood, Uncle Jorge is not famous. He just does important work in an unusual place. If I leave you anything, it is the conviction that goodness has a place in this world, whether in the Vatican or on the streets. Perhaps what endures about Pope Francis is not what he held, but what he refused to hold. The will that made his family weep contained no treasure, only a question: can you live without taking more than you need? For Maria Elena, for his nephews, for anyone watching, that question is the inheritance, and it cannot be divided, it cannot be sold, it cannot be lost, only answered.